Okay, let's just get right into this. It is 9:36 p.m. Central Time on the 15th of January, 2026. It's Thursday night here in the United States. Hope you're doing well. And like I just said before I started over here, that we got a 6.0 earthquake reported off the west coast of the United States, off the west coast of Oregon. And this is the first 6 reported out here in well, a year, maybe more. I mean, it's been a long time since we've had any 6.0 level activity reported in the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. So that all being said, the earthquake I'm talking about is right here. So it's currently listed at 6.0. I'll open that up on the USGS map so that we can just see this ever so slightly better. And let me get a display capture turned on. That might actually help us in looking at this. There we go. So this is the USGS information on the earthquake, 6.0. We will get the coordinates and go put them in. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the USGS maybe even took this down to 5.9, just knowing the USGS, the way they calculate earthquakes, they usually revise them down. Sometimes they revise them upwards. We've seen that too, but there's no station details contributed to this so far, at least on the USGS site. So let's put the coordinates in and just go see what's at the location. Of course, I told you it's the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. This is out in the ocean off the western coast of the U.S., off the coast of Oregon. And here is the epicenter and the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. Let's just show you that first before we go any further. Turn everything off. It's a lightning bolt or zigzag shape. It's actually like a letter M. It goes in 2 jagged points here down to the Gorda Escarpment, which really is the San Andreas that goes down into California on the land portion. But out here, the southern portion of the Juan de Fuca is where the San Andreas starts. And then this is the leftover remnant, supposedly, of an ancient plate that's being pushed under North America. But I need to turn something on here because we have volcanic segments across here, such as the East Blanco Depression or the North Gorda Ridge segment. And the new 6.0 comes in right here, and you'll see I have a whole bunch of other earthquakes marked throughout the years, going back 10, 15 years. But if you zoom in really close, you'll see a bunch of volcanoes down here. So these are undersea mounts that are spatter cones, if you think of them like that. Lines of them that go to the southeast or to the northwest, but really it's all to the southeast. There's whole lines of them that connect from point to point. Now, out here, up at the axial seamount, professionals started talking this past year that the axial seamount may go into eruption, which is an undersea eruption. It's not blasts, it's lava flows that happen. As you can see here, it's done it many, many times. Many thousands of times has there been eruptions out here off the coast at the axial seamount. Now, that was talked about last year by professionals, and now here we are, and we're right next to the axial seamount with the first 6 in a long time. It may be a sign that the axial seamount is getting ready to do something, even though it's somewhat far away. Like the earthquake's not directly tied to the volcano, but it would be something that we would watch to happen along with some kind of eruption that's taking place out there. And in light of the other 6s going around the planet, this shouldn't be that big of a shock. We had a 6.0 earthquake just earlier today up here, well, last night, international time. This is up at Alaska. A new 6 struck last night. USGS downgraded to 5.9. And then you'll be able to see over the past 2 days, the whole West Pacific from Japan north all the way to Alaska moved on a 5.0 basis. So all of this happened first up to a 6 in Alaska, which was last night, international time. And then now today, a new 6 strikes over here next to the volcanoes we're expecting to see erupt. But it is the first 6 in a long time on the West Coast at all, and out to sea especially even longer. So that being said, if you're just now tuning in, a new 6, the first in a year or more, has struck off the west coast of Oregon on the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. And usually when we see activity like this, shortly thereafter, down to the south, down in California, we tend to see movement. And this is even from professionals have now even come out in the past year. University of Washington came out with new studies saying that they've seen or noticed a correlation between activity off the west coast of the Northwest, followed shortly thereafter by activity down in California on land. And I don't know the stats on that. I just remember seeing that as a headline in the mainstream media, which took me by shock because previously professionals said there was no relation between anything that happens on the West Coast. And if there is anything that happens back to back or days apart, they just call it chance. Which to me is, again, we're going to get out and flip quarters to try and figure out what chance is. But I will tell you that we would watch for the next several days, let's say the next 5 days, down to the east-southeast, down in California, down along the coast, following the San Andreas. Let's get the USGS plate boundary map open so I can show you how it's connected. Here's our new 6 out there off the coast, and you see these red lines. The red lines are, of course, the plate boundaries. If you're a longtime viewer, you already know that. It's the crack or boundary between the two plates, in this case, the Pacific and Laurentia, North America. So the new 6 out here on the Juan de Fuca, and look where this goes. This goes down to the east-southeast and connects right down into the San Andreas. This is the San Andreas, the red line. So that being said, 6.0 up here means we need to watch to the south for something similar in size. Now, it's usually smaller, and it's not one causing the other, so let's just get that out of the way too. It wouldn't be this 6 causing a new earthquake down to the south. It's that this 6 up to the north and the new earthquake that has not yet struck down to the south will both strike as a result of a wave that's coming in, that's dropping off the 6 out off the coast and whatever strikes down to the south. Now, we do have a new 3.4, and Texas just got hit. Back to back. Hold on. So a 3.4 just struck down in Southern California. Let's get the time. Yep. Time on this is 57 UTC. 5 minutes after this struck, we saw a new earthquake down here. Now, they may even delete these other earthquakes. This could be the shock wave of the quake itself going across these areas, and the seismographs are very sensitive, and they'll pick up the 6.0 and register it as an actual earthquake in these spots. If we see any more activity go over to the east, then we'll know that it's not an anomaly, that this would be actual earthquakes going across. If any more strike in the next few minutes going over to the east, that's too far. So, in other words, if you get a 6 over here on the west coast, it will not trigger new earthquakes over to the east by chance. So let's go look at the location down to the south and just see what got hit down to the south. I'm curious because we're going to look for the south to get hit in the next few days. That could go 2 magnitudes higher than where we are now. If we're at 3.4, I would watch for up to 5.4 down in Southern California, for instance, and we'll determine the area to watch in a second, but I just want to go see what's here at this spot that got hit 5 minutes after. With a 3.4, it's nothing to scoff at here. This is the San Andreas. Okay, we've got volcanoes on the north side. You can see them out here in the Mojave Desert. They're marked from the Smithsonian. And down here to the south, we have our, of course, famous San Andreas Fault, with also the San Jacinto and Elsinore faults to the south. Is there anything here right at the epicenter? Desert Hot Springs. Okay, we've got the hot springs there. We also have the military base over here. That's worth paying attention to. It's not exactly at the spot, but it's definitely close enough. Now, these are locations where we've seen huge earthquakes in the past, so I would lean towards the actual fault zone, the actual plate boundary as the cause. We don't have a big power plant here, for instance, do we? Where they're generating a lot of power? Well, they are. Look at that. They've got a huge wind farm out here. Massive wind farm. What else do we have going? Oh, look. Geothermal power and solar. So all of this is for power generation. So think of it like this. We're generating very low frequency on the surface. And then down below, we have a wave passing through that's electromagnetic in nature, or at least electric in nature, very low frequency. And as the two meet, you precipitate a new earthquake. So that's really interesting. So I'm going to tell you right now, we'll watch down in Southern California, in between our 3 and our 4. The 4 that struck earlier today down in Southern California at Holtville is next to an energy generation station as well. So let's go put the 4.0 coordinates in and show you what's there. We just looked up the 3.4. Now what are we zooming in? Again, Holtville, right? So in case you're not familiar, here's the U.S. border with Mexico. And starting right down here, it is the most, I'd say, the biggest solar farms in the United States. These dwarf what's in even Nevada, for instance. These are all solar panels for power generation. And here are crops. So these are crops, and then right across, they've stopped doing farming, and all of these are solar panels. And then the volcano has been drilled into, and they're getting geothermal steam out of the volcano. And the volcano is actually up here at Salton Buttes. Actual Salton Buttes, the Smithsonian place mark is right there. Starting at the foot of the old volcano are the drill points for steam. And we just keep going. They have a whole bunch of these out here. These are geothermal turbines. We go down to the south. We go through Haley, for instance. There's more on the north side. For geothermal, I mean. For the volcano. And on the south side, right down to the U.S. border, right down here, where they have more geothermal. And then the Mexicans are doing their own version right across the border down here at Cerro Prieto volcano. And on the side of Cerro Prieto, here's our large Mexican geothermal pumping operation that's doing the same thing. It's turning turbines with the steam. So the volcano there, plus the power generation there, plus this. One more time, back over here. Look where our quake is, our 4. And it's right on the plate boundary. So you've got like a trifecta of precipitating factors for the earthquake to strike there, as opposed to down in the Gulf of California or up to the north naturally along the fault. The seismic wave that's going through the area seeks out a path of least resistance to a spot where it can release, and where humans are generating very low frequency on the surface, plus there's a crack in the plate that's the plate boundary, plus the volcanic weakness coming up from down below, and the wave strikes there. And this all happened before the 6. So if I'm going to watch between our 2 earthquakes to the south. That's putting pretty much, well, south of LA and north of San Diego to the east. That's the San Andreas going into the Elsinore, going into the San Jacinto. It's 3 different faults that meet there. We just watch between all 3. It's a matter of 50 miles that we'd watch in there. And the size would be, I would say, if I have to, again, just base this on the current activity, it would be in the 5 range in the next 5 days. So hopefully I'm wrong, nothing hits at all, but as it stands right now, in the past, when we've seen 6.0 level activity, normally it's followed thereafter by somewhat significant activity down in Southern California. Let's go ahead and refresh the feed and just see if anything else has struck since I started this update. Or see if the USGS has adjusted the magnitude down, for instance. Nothing? Nothing so far on the adjusting of the magnitude. Let's refresh one more time. Let's go click on the earthquake one more time. 6.0 off the coast of Oregon as they have it listed. Notice that there's no tsunami threat on this kind of earthquake, guys. By the way, if you're worried about that kind of stuff, I would tell you immediately. So don't worry about the tsunami right now. The threat of a tsunami, I mean, there is nothing going on like that. Usually on 6.0 level activity, even 7.0 level activity, unless there's major shifting that happens on the plate boundary, you're okay on the tsunami threat on the West Coast. Usually it's a huge upheaval earthquake that sends a wave towards the United States. And if it falls down, which it also can do, it could send a wave out the other way. But that's only with huge earthquakes and huge upheaval. But let's go ahead and take a look at the origin page, and one more time click on magnitude, see how they're coming to their determination, because there's so many stations on the West Coast and around the world. But to give us the determination on the earthquake, I mean, how are they coming to their determination of it? Look, it says 86 stations reporting, right? But so I do wonder what's going on here. Oh, a new 6 has been reported. Hold on. By the way, wait for this, 6.0. When a 6.0, 7.0, or 8.0, or 9.0 earthquake strikes on the live stream, we get the sound of the horn. And now if a 6 hits, we have a train horn. If a 7 hits, we have a police siren. If an 8 hits, we have the bridge alert from Star Trek, the red alert from Star Trek. And for 9s, we have the Ghostbusters car alarm, which we haven't had to use. But I do want to get the info on the second earthquake reported here. They have it reported as M6.0, 295 kilometers west of Bandon, Oregon. So they've refined the location from the previous to this. Now, again, I don't know if they've changed much at all. Let's go look at the origin page on this, magnitudes. And I mean, we're looking at two different reported earthquakes at the same time, is what it looks like. Two different feeds, 52 and 52 time frame on that. Let me just make sure I clicked on the right one. Because again, we have two simultaneously reported earthquakes on the feed. GFO Potsdam is now populated a 6.0 as well. They have it at 10 kilometers deep, and the location is slightly different with GFO Potsdam. They're 1 point less on the decimals. So they're actually giving us less refined coordinates. USGS gives us a full, taking us out to the thousandths on location, which is good. That's good. So I'm going to wait and see what they ultimately come in at magnitude-wise. Oh, look, hey, we got body magnitude reported now. Hey, check it out. They've updated the page. Look at that. Just got to give them a little time. So what I want to do on the body magnitude and at local stations, maybe at some point they'll show us, but we'll go down both lists and we're going to toss out the high end. And we will also toss out the low end. And if we, of course, toss out the high end and the low end, that leaves us a nice broad swath in the middle of what the earthquake actually was. So in this case, I'd toss out the 6.1s and 6.2s, and we'd also toss out the 5.6s and 5.7s. And what does that leave? Something like a 6, a 5.9 to 6. And for the body magnitude, let's go down. Now, these are showing a little higher, so let's just go and see how high we go. We're not the opposite limbo. We're seeing how high we can go. And we're going to toss out the high end. And on the low end, look, 4.9. We'll toss out the low ends, 4s and 5s. We know it's not that. We also know it's not like a 7. So we're going to toss out the upper 6s, all the big ones, and we're going to toss out all the low ones. And that leaves us more, again, with something like a 6, 5.9, 6, 6.1. Now, geophone pot, that's a primitive way of coming to a determination of whether or not the earthquake is a bigger earthquake or a smaller earthquake. Again, if these were all 7s, I would think that maybe they were downgrading it for some political reason or to not panic the public. But in this case, it looks pretty accurate, at least. Let's recap. A new 6.0 earthquake has been reported out here. They're the same earthquake that's just been double reported by geophone Potsdam. But 1.6 has struck. 2 agencies are reporting it. And it's a significant earthquake. It's the first in about a year, I'd say. I'd have to go back and look to be sure. The last 6 that struck out here on the Juan de Fuca. If somebody else knows in the chat room later on, you can tell me. I don't have the chat room open now, so I'm not seeing comments. But that being said, I'm going to watch Southern California for something like a mid-range 5 to 5.5. And that would be in the next, week or less. What did I say? 5 days? Okay. So we're watching for a 5 within 5 days. But usually it's within a few days we see a big increase down in Southern California. So it's like when this moves out here, then the whole plate boundary starts to move on a smaller basis. It's not huge usually, but we can see similar sized earthquakes. That can happen. There have been many times where we've seen 5.0 level activity strike up here off the coast, followed by a 5 down in Southern California within the day or 2 days. And then the 5 somewhat stopped being reported, but we did not stop seeing the 4s and back-to-back 4s and near 5s that strike every now and then along the West Coast on land, but they keep it hush-hush out here usually on the reporting of the earthquakes. I don't know why that is. It gets into politics. This actually gets into a whole separate video that I would have to do on explaining why certain areas, they kind of don't report unless there's something serious going on there. And it's usually because the mainstream media jumps on things, puts doomsday titles on earthquakes like this, when it's really just a 6 off the coast. Now, when the 5 strikes down south, people deserve to know that there's a flow that happens, but it's not this 6 causing a 5 down south. It's that this 6 and the expected 5 that should hit down south are both caused by a wave that's coming through the area. And when the wave passes through, it goes across the plate. We should be talking about earthquakes up in Quebec and in New Jersey, and maybe even off the coast of the east coast of the United States, Florida. We should be talking about that too by the end of the week. Quebec, for instance, up here in the far northeast, right? New Hampshire, Vermont, Quebec, Maine area. We should also be seeing something about New Jersey and something about down in Florida or along the coast of the Carolinas. the edge of the North American craton, which this gets us into what the craton is. When the craton moves, we see movement off the west coast. And it's, again, just so everybody's clear, it's not that an earthquake off the west coast can cause an earthquake on the east coast, but both the earthquake on the west coast and the coming earthquake on the east coast up in the far northeast will be caused by the craton shifting with the wave passing across it. But where's the wave coming from? Well, we get into deep earthquakes and what's going on a world away. But I don't want to get into that now. Let me go ahead and turn off the display capture and just remind everybody, you need to have an earthquake plan. You need to know what to do when an earthquake strikes, mainly is what I'm getting at here. Now, on the West Coast, you've heard this a lot. I know it's like beating a drum, okay? You guys have heard it over and over again. But you can just do this pretty easy. An emergency kit should just have a change of clothes, set of shoes, flashlight, batteries. You don't want to get stuck using your phone if the power goes out, for instance, in an earthquake. Now, I've never been in any kind of earthquake, never felt an earthquake, knock on wood. But I would recommend that you at least have the same preparations that I have set aside. I live in the New Madrid seismic zone here in Missouri, but still, we even have an emergency kit for ourselves. It's somewhat easy to get to. Change of clothes for me and the wife, set of shoes, flashlight, batteries, seasonal specific, of course. You don't want to freeze with summertime clothes or something like that. And then you might want to also have some edible foods of some kind, high energy, high protein, high sugars for the first day. And then after that, I would say that you guys should have a longer term supply. But this is just the emergency bag. Oh, first aid and sanitation. These are all things you guys should have. And if you don't, dollar store it. You don't have to go overkill on name brands. Nobody's going to care if the Band-Aid is Band-Aid brand if an earthquake hits and you get cut. That's another thing I'd like to remind everybody. I always say this in my updates, and I hope somebody listens from time to time on this, that speaking of getting cut, if an earthquake hits in the middle of the night or in the day, and there's broken stuff across the floor, do you have a set of hard bottom shoes or slippers by the side of your bed? This doesn't cost anything, and it would come in handy for fires, floods, emergencies of any kind, break-ins, anything, that you could at least have a set of shoes by the side of your bed. Hard bottom in case you have to go outside or walk over something broken. And again, you should have at least one set of shoes or hard bottom slippers in your house for yourself. Have them by your bed. Easy peasy. Just little things like that. So take the time to think about it, have a plan, be prepared. And if a big earthquake hits, you need to take shelter. This is just basic stuff, but I mean, most people, when I see an earthquake video, they're screaming, they're running around. If you look overseas in like Japan, they're under a table or a desk. They might still be screaming. But if they see people running around, they're beckoning them over to underneath the table or the desk. So you need to know where to go. Don't get underneath a glass table. The things I have to tell you, right? So please have a plan and be prepared. Other than that, well, you can watch the earthquakes. It's like preparing for the weather. So you'd watch the earthquakes like this is a storm on the West Coast, and you would watch for the storm to blow across the United States over to the east, right? Well, same would go for earthquake activity. You'd watch for the earthquake activity to spread down and over to the east. Okay? Basic, simple. If you want to know how to do your own earthquake forecasting, full explanation on all the arrows and which way we expect the flows to go, I've got videos on my YouTube channel, easy, free to watch, even text that you can just read if you want to do your own earthquake forecasting or understand the principles any further than what I'm explaining here. I'll be back if anything else strikes. I did record this, so I'm going to go put it on YouTube in a few minutes. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitch, thank you for watching live. You're watching this live on Twitch. If you're on YouTube, guys, you can come over and watch live on Twitch anytime. There's a reason I'm not live streaming on YouTube. The earthquake thing is not welcome live on YouTube 24/7. Twitch allows it. YouTube kicks it off after 12 hours, that kind of thing. I'll be back. Word up, much love.